Hi, I'm doing this quick video to introduce you to my buyer's guide to digital SLR cameras. I've had a lot of friends and family ask me what my recommendations are for digital SLRs, and I think a lot of it's coming from the fact that the price of digital SLRs have come down a lot. I mean, you can get a really good camera for under $1,000, and even some of them around the $500 mark. So they're certainly becoming in the range of enthusiasts now rather than just professional, semi-professional photographers. One of the confusing things though when entering the digital SLR market is there's such a bewildering array of different models. There's like, you've got your Canons, you've got your Nikons, but now there's like Sony and Samsung and a few other manufacturers. And with each manufacturer having a whole range of cameras as well. So for a beginner coming into this field, trying to decide on what camera they want, it's really quite difficult, and it can be quite overwhelming. So what I've done with this guide, I've basically just stuck to two cameras, Canon and Nikon. Now the reason I've done that, I'm sure there's good cameras from the other brands, but my personal experience is with the Canons and with the Nikons. So from my research and my personal experience, I feel you can't go wrong with either the Canon or the Nikons. So what I've done is I've picked certain models from all the way from entry-level beginner cameras through enthusiast, semi-pro, pro, and then the really high-end professional cameras. Basically done a brief overview of the whole range of cameras out there. In the guide I've actually just dealt with Canon and Nikon, and I've got equivalent models next to each other. So they have a similar price, similar features. In some cases Canon will be better, in some cases Nikon will be better for the particular level that I'm dealing with, but I have some of the basic specifications there, and you can certainly click on the links and check the reviews and get more detailed specifications. But I basically just put in the highlights so that you can compare the two models at each level, and that way you have an informed decision on which camera you'd like to get. You know, a lot of people say, well, what about, you know, Canon or Nikon? Well, if you already have an existing collection of lenses, you most likely want to go with the particular brand that you have lenses for already. If you have any professional lenses, like in my case, I have Canon lenses, so I pretty much tend to stick with buying a Canon body so that I can use my existing professional lenses. If you're starting fresh, it's really going to depend on features that you're interested in, and that way that's the reason why I've put them side by side, so that you can get an idea of whether you want the Canon or the Nikon based on the feature set. So either way, any of these models will certainly take your photography to the next level, and you'll be really happy with your choice, whichever model of these you go for. If you're totally new to this, digital SLR cameras are basically cameras where you can remove the lens, and when you remove the lens you can actually see that there's a mirror inside, and that's how you can see through the lens. With digital SLRs they have a prism, so the eyepiece and a prism, and you actually look straight through the lens via the mirror in the prism system, and when you take the photo the mirror flips up and the sensor at the back gets exposed. So that's the main characteristic of the digital SLR that distinguishes it from other point and shoots. And the other thing too is a digital SLR camera has a larger sensor than your regular point and shoots. So if you look at the regular point and shoot camera, they have quite a small sensor inside, and they're certainly handy. I'm not saying anything against point and shoot cameras. They certainly have their place. You know, if you want to slip something in your pocket, they're really handy. But when you're starting to get more demanding with your image quality and you really want to take your photography to the next level, there are limits, because when you get onto the digital SLRs, the larger sensor size means you have better resolution with less grain, and they basically accept more light onto the sensor, so you get a much better quality image. And there's various other things too, which I won't go into too much detail now. And also with the digital SLR, because like I mentioned with the lenses, you can remove the lenses and that gives you the ability to upgrade. You can buy longer zoom lenses, like in this case here. This is an 80-200 professional Canon zoom. Sorry, not 80, a 70-200. So that lets you basically build up a great lens collection so that you can build up your kit through time without having to be just stuck with one lens. So that's the other huge advantage with digital SLR cameras. In the guide too, I do go through some of the lenses, mostly the zooms, but I do touch briefly on prime lenses and what that means to you. Basically, once you have your body and you have your lens, then you will be looking at getting some memory cards. You need at least one because with these digital cameras to be able to store your photos on. And the lower end of the range, the entry level, prosumer level, a lot of those use SD cards, and the higher end, the professional levels, tend to use compact flash cards. I have a section on camera bags. You want to be able to protect your gear, so there's, from both Nikon and Canon, they have basic bags where you can fit your camera body and a couple of lenses and perhaps a flash and all the other little accessories like memory cards and lens cleaners and filters. Now, when it comes to traveling, I've done a fair bit of traveling. My favorite is actually the backpacks. They have these great camera backpacks, really well padded, and I have a page there of recommendations. Now the good thing about backpacks is you can obviously travel with them. You can go on hikes with all your camera gear, which can start getting quite heavy if you have a bunch of lenses. So I find the backpack suits my style as far as traveling goes. And also for carry-on luggage on airplanes, it's really handy because they fit within the size requirements for carry-on, but they protect all your gear very nicely. And the ones I recommend actually have a laptop pocket in the back, so you actually have a self-contained system. You've got your cameras, your gear, and a laptop for processing images all in one self-contained backpack. So very handy. I also touch on some flash options from middle level flash to professional level flash. Some of the entry-level models do, and semi-pro model bodies do actually have pop-up flashes, but the higher-end ones tend not to, and in those cases you really want to buy an add-on flash. And if you're going to take flash photography seriously, you really want to do that because it's having the flash head a bit more separated from the lens center results in better flash photography overall. And the one thing I do recommend in the buyer's guide too is some kind of flash diffuser. I'm not a real fan of the old deer in the headlights flash, bright blown out look, and quite often if you just use default flashes or pop-up flashes, you find that you get very bright foreground subject and the back just fades off into darkness, whereas if you use some kind of diffuser, it softens the whole light and you can bring a little bit more of the ambient light back in the background, and I find that results in pleasing photos. So fill in your details, click on that confirmation link in your email when you get it, and you can get immediate access to this totally free buyer's guide.